Alright. How many of you guys have been to a wedding?
Yes.
How many of you guys saw a bride in white?
Yes.
A groom in a tux,
Yeah.
flowers, bridesmaids, groomsmen, the American tradition, right? How many of you guys have ever thought of what an African wedding would look like, or an Indian wedding, or a Chinese wedding? So today I want to talk about the word tradition and how it means something different in each culture around the world. So I want to focus on three different cultures: the African culture, the Indian culture, and the Chinese culture. So to start off with, let's go to Africa. So being African, my wedding will look a lot different than the American traditional wedding, because I will incorporate a lot of my African roots into the traditional wedding, of course, because I want the white dress. I am American as well, so I will include both of them, so I get the best of both worlds. If, in my opinion, if I could have a slice of each culture in my wedding, that would be wonderful, but I have to stay in my own cultural rounds, which is perfectly fine. In Africa, there is still the pay for your bride. In Kenya, this is still practiced, where the groom, if you wish to marry the bride, you show up to her house, you ask her father for her hand, and then you present him with a gift showing that you can provide for his daughter. Provide for her, take care of her, and in a sense love her for the rest of her life. And if he senses that you're worthy of his daughter, he'll give you the blessing of marriage. Another tradition that we have is the bride doesn't typically wear white. We tend to wear yellows, oranges, blues, lots of vibrant colors that really stick out, patterns that go along with those colors. So take my headscarf for an example. If I wanted this as my dress, I would have it custom made, and my grooms would then match my dress. So we do have a matching thing in Africa, something that's not really done in the American tradition. But again, in my own wedding, we won't be matching. He will be in the tux, I will be in the white dress and look like what I have on right now. The head wrap and all of the bangles. Beads are a very big thing in Africa. Instead of like the gold that's around the neck, and then everything else tends to be beading. Another tradition we have is called the Hamahara bath. The Hamahara bath is where the bride and the groom wash their hands in black soap. So black soap is known to get rid of bad luck and create good omens for the couple to be and the couple that's going off into their wedding, into their new life together. So now that we know a little bit more about the African culture, let's talk about the Indian culture. The Indian culture is very bright and very, very just party all the time. Their wedding ceremony lasts for 3 days, which I don't think I could last for 3 days. But the first day is just for the bride and groom and a priest, where the bride and groom get blessed over, and they talk about how they can become a stronger couple together, how to incorporate God into their relationship, and how to become that one. And the second day is known as the bridal party. The bridal party is where the bride gets her henna done. Henna is both known in India and Africa. Not so much in Africa anymore. We just typically do the painting of our tribal colors and our tribe where we're from. Kenya has their own tribes and such and such. So India does their henna on their hands and their feet. Their henna tends to be a dedication to their gods. So if you ever get a chance to look at an Indian bride and see her hands, you'll notice that they are typically dedicated to the god that brings them luck or joy or a good spirit. There is also a tradition called the casting of the Lahaja Mohara. Lahaja Mohara is the casting of white rice into the fire, which gets rid of the bad luck or the curses that could have been put upon them before they got married, which is kind of the same thing that Africans do with the black soap. And there's a tradition with every culture in the world that tends to be focused on luck. Everything that is done brings the couple luck, good fortune, wealth, and such and such. And then that brings us to our third day of the ceremony, which is the wedding, of course. where they are married before man and God and they are finally one. This is the party where the bride is joyful, of course, she's in her jewels. They tend to look a lot like what I have on now, just a lot more gold, a lot more headpieces that are meant for their culture and for their gods and for their appreciation factors. So now that we've talked about the Indian wedding, let's discuss the Chinese wedding, which I knew nothing about. The Chinese wedding is a lot different than the African or Indian wedding, which I knew things about Africa, because of course I'm African, and then the Indian wedding, because it's always fascinated me about just how long their weddings have been and just how much stuff they do in those 3 days. But the Chinese wedding is one day, and let's switch that already. So the Chinese wedding is one day. The bride wears red and gold. Red and gold are their colors of luck. So in China, the groom matches the bride in the red outfit as well, just like in Africa, how we would match our groomsmen and our future husbands. There's also something called the Shahala chair. So the Shahala chair is something that I wanted in my own wedding because it was a very cool factor for me, but unfortunately I could not have it in my wedding. The Shahala chair is where the bride will get married and the ceremony's over and they're leaving the place of marriage, and she gets into this beautiful decorated box, it looks like, and the groomsmen will then come out and pick up that box and carry her to her new husband's house, which sounded amazing to me. But they also do this celebration called Gathering of the Bride. So the groomsmen will show up at the bride's house, just happy, already dressed for the wedding. It's early morning, so she's sleeping, she's probably getting ready, not prepared, and he shows up at her house with his friends, her friends, his family, her family, and they set off fireworks, they dance, they play music, and they dance in the street. It's just like this huge celebration of what's to come down the road, of life of marriage, of their wedding day, and just a great life in general down the road for them. Which is another thing that I would have loved, but I don't think living out here they would allow us to set off fireworks in the street. And neighbors wouldn't appreciate music at 5 in the morning. But I hope that I have brought a new light to the word traditional in a sense, because the word traditional means something different to me than it would to you or to somebody else and to the next person. So I hope that I have enlightened you in a sense with all the other cultures that are out there that tradition means to them. Thank you.